Good morning, everyone. I'm Constable Dani McKinnon, Public Information Officer, Winnipeg Police Service. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis, and our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. And as well, we do provide a content warning at the beginning of all of our releases. I will just verbally give a reminder that this release today does contain content of violence and related to homicide. So please take care if you choose to follow this release today. So I thought I'd do this a little bit differently today because this is talking about a homicide that occurred in July of 2024. And typically when we give updates, we just dive into them, but I think it would be prudent to go back and give a little bit of background on the initial incident. So on July 13th, 2024, just before noon, Winnipeg Police Service were called to a soccer complex in the 900 block of Waverly Street. And this was for a tournament that was taking place. There was an African Cup of Nations soccer tournament. We got a call that there was a shooting in the parking lot, and upon police arrival, officers located an unresponsive male suffering from gunshot wounds. He was immediately provided emergency medical care, transported to hospital in critical condition, and later pronounced deceased. The deceased individual was identified as 22-year-old Mohamed Yusuf Abdullahi of Winnipeg. It's prudent to say that Abdullahi was a player in this tournament. In fact, he had just finished his game. Although he was originating from Ethiopia, he was playing for Team Eritrea, and he had just finished the game and come into the parking lot area when this fatal shooting took place. So, homicide investigators from the Winnipeg Police Service have continued to work on the investigation, worked with the community members, his family, as well as the organizers of the event. Tremendous impact obviously felt on the community, not only with the players and the spectators, but really the entire community with such a tragic event in a public place at a recreational event. So the homicide unit was able to eventually identify 3 suspects in this shooting. And on January 20th of this year, 2025, 26-year-old Ibrahim Bangura was arrested for first-degree murder in Winnipeg here. And on February 5th, 2025, a second suspect, 27-year-old Norbert Kipala, was arrested already in the Thunder Bay Correctional Facility on another matter, also charged with first-degree murder. However, a third suspect remains outstanding. They have now identified this individual as 22-year-old Tresor Horimbere, and he is wanted on a Canada-wide warrant for first-degree murder as well. Now, he's described up here. You can have a look at his photograph. Approximately 5'8", quite slim, 120 pounds. He's considered armed and dangerous, so police ask to not approach him if you know of his whereabouts. Please call 911. Now, he's believed to be potentially in the Ontario area. And all means of trying to find him at this stage are now at the point where police are asking for public assistance. It should be noted that Horimbere has another warrant, and that is issued by the OPP, and it's related to firearms offenses in the Hawkesbury area, and Hawkesbury is just a small town east of Ottawa. So I don't know, I thought we had a map up there, but that's okay. That's for any other folks that are potentially from Ontario, or if you know people in Ontario, or for law enforcement in Ontario who our agency is obviously working closely knit with. If you see this individual, if you have any information about his whereabouts, do not approach. You can do the following. You can call 911, whatever city you're in. You can call the Winnipeg Police Service, our homicide unit, at 204-986-6508. Or you can do the anonymous route and provide a tip through Crime Stoppers at 204-786-TIPS or online at winnipegcrimestoppers.org. And there is a financial award potentially for viable tips, anywhere up to $2,000 for something this serious as a homicide. Any tip will be considered and followed up on. So very important that you understand this is an option if you don't want to talk directly to law enforcement. And before I take any questions, just see if there was anything else I wanted to add with my notes. I don't believe so. I should just say that this has been a very lengthy and fulsome investigation. As I mentioned earlier, the community within the African Cup of Nations soccer tournament, the organizers, they were very supportive to the community, to the players, but also worked very diligently with the Winnipeg Police Service immediately upon this shooting, as well as continuing to offer support and cooperation. Investigators indeed investigated over 100 individuals. They do believe that the suspects in this matter, two of whom have been arrested, and Horimbere standing out right now, took methods to conceal themselves and that they were likely in the crowd of the soccer game, covering their faces and potentially trying to evade police, obviously. So I'll take some questions.
Obviously, with first degree and investigation, can you speak to, is there any opportunity to speak to the relationship or the motives from the suspects and the victim?
Right, so you mentioned the first degree, and with that comes thought and planning and intention. And, you know, the investigators have indicated that Horimbere, who is being sought by police right now, was an acquaintance to the deceased Abdullahi. The extent of the other relationships are not fully known. There is an aspect believed to involve the criminal underworld of drugs, and with that, potentially some gang ties. Now, that full extension of how that works is still to be established.
So, can you say that they were all present?
Yes.
And Horimbere, are you able to say when he left the city?
No, we don't know.
And why do you believe that he's in Ontario? Is it because of these more recent firearms charges?
Those firearms charges actually were earlier. They were in 2023. So detectives here do know that Horimbere has family and friend connections to Winnipeg, but he also has connections to Ontario and many different areas of Ontario. So there's just a strong likelihood that he is in that area.
For Kipala being held in Thunder Bay, what's being held in custody?
I don't know.
Is he from Winnipeg as well?
I don't know his origin.
For Horimbere, was he reported missing prior to this homicide? Was there a missing persons release for him in July last year?
You know what? I don't know, Chris. Is that something you saw? If it is, you can follow up with us. I'm not aware of that.
Just a very quick Google search.
Oh, okay. No, I've really just been honing in on this specific piece with the homicide.
For this community that was affected, you kind of touched on it, but can you talk about the impacts? Like, just, I'm assuming there were a lot of people at this game.
Yeah, so there was definitely over 100 spectators. You know, it was a very nice evening. It's a central area for soccer, and it's called the African Cup of Nations, and it brings together members from many different African countries to enjoy sport together, but also the feeling of family and connection within the city. It's very common for many of the players to play for supporting teams. As I had mentioned, Abdullahi was originally from Ethiopia, playing for Eritrea, which was a very common position to take, I understand, from the organizers.
Are there any other suspects potentially, or is it?
No, not that I've been made aware of.
And it's believed that the suspects were actually watching the game as well, they were spectators?
Yes.
And when they were watching, were they masked, or did they have their faces covered during the game as well?
I believe that they may have had a face covering on, yes.
Did they all leave in the vehicle?
That I don't have information about.
To follow up on the first degree and with intent, the suspects, is it believed they attending this tournament was part of the intent, or was this, I guess, somewhat opportunistic for them? They were there and found their target, as it were.
Well, those are pieces that are a runway to the investigation, and those are not pieces that I would be able to speak to up here. Obviously, that's a dynamic that would be looked at in court and forms part of motive and opportunity, et cetera.
The firearms offenses from 2023 that you mentioned, suspect, do you know the circumstances?
No, I don't. I just want to say, though, that they are unrelated to this. So it's not believed to be related to the homicide. Just mentioning them because they occurred in Hawkesbury, which is close to Ottawa, and there is a likelihood that he's in that area.
Did you say who did the shooting?
No,
Or who was alleged to?
no, they've all been charged with first-degree murder.
Was there more than one shooter, or was there just one?
Can't say. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough.
So you don't know, you don't have any clue about the motive?
I'm sorry?
You don't have any clue about the motive?
The motive?
Yeah.
No. You know, as I mentioned, these people were all likely known to each other, at least acquaintances. There was some type of conflict that occurred, possibly related to drugs, gang activity, some type of criminal objective that was occurring between them. Is there any other questions?
Prior to this investigation, were any of the suspects known to Winnipeg police?
Yes.
Is there anyone else at risk?
Well, you know what? We've indicated that he's armed and dangerous because of two things. His previous charges in Hawkesbury being firearms offenses, we always consider those extremely potentially dangerous if somebody has access to guns or is willing to use them. And secondly, this individual's involved in a first-degree murder involving a firearm. So we always caution the public, full awareness, vigilance, and if you do know who he is or where he is, just call 911 and law enforcement will take over.
How complex the investigation after something like this, where you have so many people who were present, but I'm assuming some out of sheer panic and terror fled the scene?
That's right.
How difficult was it, I guess, to kind of speak to witnesses, locate witnesses, and go from there?
Well, I'm just going to speak anecdotally. I'm, not a homicide investigator, but from doing other investigations where that's often the case, where people do leave, especially in a scene of violence, which, you should take cover or leave as quickly as possible. Like we said, the organizers of this event were extremely helpful. So with that, by proxy, they would know a number of the families involved and would have reached out and assisted with that. Other people will just come forward. That's the way it is. They want to help. They'll come forward. And there's other people that were probably there that police did not speak to. But at the end of the day, over 100 people were spoken to. So I think that that is incredible, and it shows how much the community was invested in helping police with this situation and moving their investigation forward.
The image on the right, is that from the day of the
Oh.
shooting? Or is that
Thank you for bringing that up. So, the one with the mask, not necessarily right on the day, but believed to be very close within the time frame, whether that's a day or hours. And then the other one here is a previous photograph, and so his hair may not be the exact same. You can tell that he's wearing a hat there, and it might be a little bit shorter. Just a general idea.
The image on the left, is that a police photo, or is that some sort of other
I don't know.
document photo?
Not sure. Anything else here? Thank you.